Hello again and welcome. Last episode, I spoke with COO and Chief Learning Strategist Susan Minaya on the different phases of a learning strategy. Moving on, this episode I will be continuing my conversation with Susan on learning strategy, discussing the relevant skills and competencies needed to be a learning strategist. Stay tuned to learn more. We've talked about some of the fundamentals of what a learning strategy is and its purpose, and some of the key components of it, but what are the skills needed to produce a learning strategy?
Well, that's a really big question because, while I wholeheartedly believe that anyone can create learning strategies if they kind of understand a process and flow, I do believe there are skills that are essential to be an effective learning strategist. So with that said, let's just take a look leveraging the ATD capabilities model for an example, right? Because that model being building personal capability, professional capability, and organizational capability has essentially 23 capabilities, as they're called, not necessarily, competencies, but they are in essence competencies, capabilities. And similarly, another organization, Brandon Hall organization, who also has their learning strategy certification program that they offer, also has 23 competencies that are associated with that. But they're all essentially kind of come together in their common, right? So the biggest is obviously communication. Why? Because you're going to be interacting with people, surveys, interviews, putting together your deck, so verbal, written, and oral, communication is just essential to be an effective learning strategist because, you really have to be able to build trust with the people that you're working with. And so communication is a way that you could do that. And I think also you just really have to be collaborative. You have to be able to work well with people. You're going to come across people they're suspicious of you. They're supportive of you. They're like, you're going to run the gamut of people, when you're interacting with them. And you really just need to learn how to be influential and kind of sway people around to open up and be able to share with you. Because quite frankly, if they don't share with you, you're not going to get what you need to put an effective strategy together. Certainly project management is important because usually when you're doing learning strategies, you have a finite amount of time to do that. When we look at just the role of the learning function, you just have to understand what is instructional design, what is facilitation and delivery, because you can't be making recommendations when you don't understand the job or the role or the things that they're doing, right? You need to understand learning technology and infrastructure. So you have to have that technical agility and savvy to be able to really make good decisions about the recommendations that you might have, or to know when there's a challenge or a problem, or how you could come up with a better way they could do something to reach the audiences they serve. And then I think there's also on the organizational side, it's really understanding change management principles as well, because anything you're recommending is creating a change. It could be a change in the way learning gets done in the organization. It could be a change in the way people consume the training, so you have to be mindful of that and be able to provide some insight there for how they can support that. And I think, certainly if you're a strategist, you're a consultant, right? So you need to be able to have good consultative skills and I think business partnership. And I would just say that a general business acumen is really critical. So we talked about being a systems thinker. It's really good to understand the way organizations work, right? Because learning organizations sit inside of an organization. And in that organization, they have the finance and accounting, they have marketing, they have sales, they have operations, they have, all these different functions. And that's really true of most any business, right? So once you kind of understand the ecosystem of an organization and how they interrelate and play with each other and impact one another to fulfill their mission and vision that they are there to do, then you can understand how the learning function can support that.
Okay. So now there's tons more skills that I feel like can go into being a learning strategist as well that are great and beneficial. But from what you've discussed so far, would you, it takes time to develop those multitude of skills. So in your opinion, would you kind of say that those that you listed and talked about were kind of like the fundamental must-have skills needed to start getting into the role of a learning
Yes,
strategist.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Beautiful.
So, I mean, honestly, it's not rocket science, right?
Mhm.
So it's more around,
Feels more like interpersonal relationships and how you
yeah,
can
super
communicate it.
huge, super huge for success. And the business acumen piece, as I mentioned,
Yes.
yeah, for sure.
Well, again, thank you, Susan, for sharing your insights on the necessary skills to be a learning strategist. In our next episode, we'll discuss tools that learning strategists can use to help their process. Until next time.